Let's bring in Omar Ashour. You're a professor of security and military studies at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Omar, as we look back at day one of this ceasefire and this prisoner swap agreement between Israel and Hamas, what lessons do you draw from that?
Well, it's very difficult to draw lessons so far, but
yeah, very early in this process.
Very early, yeah. But there's good news; it did not collapse so far because the amount you saw the details yesterday. There was so multi-dimensions going on, from the political to the communications to the logistics to the military side to the repositioning. So there was so many details. And we're doing this by the diplomatic efforts of Qatar and the US and Egypt, but from far. You know, it's by communications. So there are no peacekeepers there. There's no force to really monitor what's going on.
The mediator Qatar has nobody on the ground.
Yeah. So and actually no media as well. So the journalists are escorted, but they're not free to monitor the situation in any free way. So within this opaque environment, you know, things can go wrong very simply. So far, there are some violations, clearly, especially with shooting at the Palestinians who are trying to go back home. However, it's holding. The first part of the exchange happened yesterday. We're seeing now preparations for the second part. So it seems to me that it's happening, and it's not it's not really the trust between the two sides that's making it happen. It's very clever mediation on one end and a lot of efforts put in that. But on the other hand, it seems to me that this is one of the Israeli operations objectives to release the hostages and the captives. And on the other end, also, I think Hamas does not want that size of, especially on the civilians. You saw women, you saw children. Probably. Hamas,
you think they don't want to hold as many captives as they have?
No, they don't want to. Because it's a major responsibility, especially on the civilian side. It's also very hard to. It will be taking responsibility for a larger number in a war situation, where monitoring them, providing the security for them, even feeding them is probably an issue. So the lesser they have, I think the more. Well, it's very hard to use the term control, but the more that they will have control over them, and therefore, you know, prolong.
They would if this deal goes through as it's currently structured, it's 50 captives that Hamas would have to release over the course of 4 days, which would leave them still with 170 to 190 captives. I mean, that's just an estimate, right?
Yeah.
So that's still a lot of captives for them to be handling, especially if the war resumes.
True, but also it can give a chance for another truce, another 4 days of exchanges and so on. And I don't think that size was by design, but it happened, and in a way it's a check for Hamas to be able to stop and have some pauses in the fighting while doing such exchanges. Whether the Israelis will agree to this is another issue, because now they're thinking that the operation is going relatively well. And therefore they want to advance more, and that's why they were resisting, you know, having this pause, and it took some significant international pressures to do so.
I looked at the public statements from both Israel and Hamas, and they're saying some very similar things on both sides. They're saying that, yes, we would like actually, and we are willing to continue the prisoner swap beyond the 4 days that are currently agreed. And both sides are saying, once this is done, we will resume the war and we will fight even harder. Both sides have said that. So if you look at the official statements, it's hard to know really where this is going. So let's disregard the official statements from both Israel and Hamas for a moment, and maybe consider what their incentives might be at the end of the 4-day ceasefire. Do you think they are more incentivized to continue the prisoner swap going, continue the ceasefire going, or to go back to fighting?
I think it will have to do with where are we on the 4th day. On one end, if there are no major violations, and these exchanges are well reflected probably for the Netanyahu government on one end, but also for Hamas on the other. If this is going on well, I think we may see some extension. If things collapsed for one reason or the other, or the Israeli side particularly saw more opportunities in terms of the amount of ISR, the intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance they have, their positioning, their defensive positioning, if they saw more opportunity there to probably destroy and degrade Hamas, I think they may take this opportunity. For the Hamas side, I think it's probably the idea of prolonging the truce is very useful for them on one end, but also the idea of reducing the number of hostages taken, I think also will help them in a way. So overall, it's interesting because they agree on two things, on releasing some of the hostages at least, and continuing war afterwards.
Omar Ashour, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again throughout the afternoon.